So, Vicky, when I speak to economic experts about what's happening in the United States, many are quick to say, oh, this isn't going to last. We're going to see inflation go back down once we get supply chains moving again. But is that an overly optimistic approach, should I say?
Well, we haven't seen it so far, and it's been said for a while now that we were going to see prices stabilize. But in fact, what we've seen is an increase in the inflation rate over the last month, which people hadn't necessarily expected. So that's been a bit of a shock. Yes, supply chains. You mentioned that. It's an issue. It's an issue everywhere, of course, not just in the US. There is also a shortage and has been a shortage of people, although that seems to be easing a little bit. Lots of people had withdrawn from the labor market, which, of course, is pushing up wages as well. But energy prices more generally, I'm afraid, have affected the US as they have affected everybody else. And the question is what happens next. And once everything gets embedded into the system and you have wages also going up, what we're seeing is that in order to overcome some of those problems, a record number of companies right now are intending to raise prices, according to latest surveys.
So what do you think is the best potential remedy for this problem in the U.S.? It's been frightening to see inflation numbers that high.
Some people would say, of course, the thing to do is raise interest rates. That, of course, is going to make life more difficult for everyone, including businesses and consumers alike. And that's an issue. And of course, we are going to see an increase next month. There is no doubt about that. The question is it going to be quite a sharp increase, maybe 50 basis points, or is it going to be a bit less than that and a bit more gradual? I suspect with the latest data, it will be a little bit more robust, if you like, in terms of the response from the Federal Reserve than perhaps people had anticipated. But of course, that isn't going to ease the problem. It takes time for monetary tightening to take an impact on prices. I think what we can hope for is that some of those supply and demand balances will get back into normality. In other words, supply will improve. And there are signs already that some of the supply issues, not just in the US, but also across the world, are getting a little bit better, but no sign yet that energy prices are really beginning to come down. In fact, if anything, with all those geopolitical tensions, they're going up rather than down.
And obviously, these things are complicated because economic forces are so interwoven. Are there more factors at work here than just the supply chain, which everyone always quickly points to when they want to simplify it?
Well, what there has been, of course, is a huge monetary expansion and a huge fiscal expansion. So there's more money in people's pockets. So there has been, even though, of course, for a while there wasn't really any supply coming through the economy, certainly at the beginning of the various lockdowns. So there is money around and supply hasn't reacted. So demand exceeds supply. Yes, the monetary expansion has been one of the reasons why we are where we are. But I suggested already geopolitics. I think at this stage of the cycle, we probably should have begun to see maybe gas prices start going down. I mean, yes, there's growth in the economy more generally, but we would have expected that there would have been an increase in supply there. But of course, we know with the problems with Russia, it hasn't been. OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum exporting countries, is raising production, but not enough. So those are the tensions that are still there. And of course, that means that input costs for businesses are still very high and protracted. And that's a problem looking ahead, really, that if that continues, then businesses have no other option than to raise their own prices.
Got it. Okay, great points, Vicky. Thanks for joining us there from your office, where we can see all those books and papers are actually in use and not just for show. Thank you.